Boys, welcome back to Today in Combat. I'm Bradley Gleason, and it's been a while. Last time I talked to you was December 26th. Today is January 15th. It's a new year. We have a new season of the UFC, and boy, do we have ourselves a card this weekend. And we also have a fun program scheduled today. We are going to break down the main card because there are some certified bangers on this. Islam Makhachev, Arman Tsarukyan, Merab Dvalishvili, Umar Nurmagomedov, double title fight, double feature against some very, very competitive high-level wrestlers. We also have Procházka, Jamahal Hill. Should be a certified banger. I think somebody's getting knocked out there. I'll tell you my feeling on that a little bit later. Beneil Dariush, Renato Moicano, Kevin Holland, Reinier de Ridder, and then Peyton Talbot and Heine Barcelos leading off the prelims. Not leading off the prelims, headlining the prelims. That should be a fantastic fight as well. We also have Jailton Almeida on this card versus Sergey Spivak. We're looking for some fresh blood in the heavyweight division, so that could be a good fight there. We've kind of been looking for Jailton to take that next step. Let's see if he can do it here. He is coming off of I'm not really going to break down this fight, so I'll kind of just give it to you now. He is coming off of a first-round submission win against Alexander Romanov, but previous to that, lost to Curtis Blades. So, need him to take that next step because the heavyweight division is begging for contenders. Somebody, obviously, we assume the title fight between Tom and John is going to happen, hopefully. If not, probably Tom and Cyril. But Jailton Almeida, we'd love to see him take that next step so we can get some fresh blood and really give some life back into the heavyweight division post that big title fight. We're also going to have our first guest on the program, friend of the program. Cody Hooper is going to come off and break down the betting. I'm a Texas native. I'm not a Texas native. I'm Illinois native, but currently living in Texas. And I don't have access to these fancy betting sites you guys get to do. I don't get to do DraftKings, FanDuel, X-Nay in Texas, brother. They don't allow it. And I'm not hooking up on these bullshit offshore funky town things. So I typically don't bet. So I'm bringing in a guy. He's going to talk through some bets. We're going to break down some fights. We'll probably go over in unison a little bit more of what I talk about on the front end here, just breaking these fights down myself. But really, we're going to get into the betting lines because there are some funky ones. Islam Makhachev minus 390 to plus 290. Arman Tsarukyan. The real one that I see that I'm like, here's some money to be made. Umar Nurmagomedov minus 300 against Merab Dvalishvili. I think that line is lopsided. We also, we'll break down the entire main card and probably some others. So excited for that. First guest on the program. You didn't think we were getting bigger and better, dog? You're wrong. 2025, we're going bigger and better all year long. I don't know. But excited for that. Let's get into it. Let's get into a little UFC 311 talk because there is some these top two fights on the main card are as competitive as on paper as humanly possible in their given divisions. And I mean, if we look at the top of the lightweight division, you got Arman Tsarukyan sitting at 1. We have Charles Oliveira, who Islam has already beat, choked out in the second round. Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, Max Holloway. That's your top 5. When we talk about who can give Islam the best, most competitive, who skill for skill matches up with him the best, it is Arman Tsarukyan. This is the fight that you circle, you go, fuck, that might be the one. Something I've noticed from Islam Makhachev is there feels to be a different air around him right now. There's a confidence, there's a calmness where he really feels, I always feel like it takes a couple fights as champion to really kind of cement yourself into that kind of rarefied air where when you walk in a room, people go, fuck, there's the champ. Guys like Alex Pereira have it. Guys like, of course, John Jones. I think back to like Kamaru Usman on his, at the top of his powers. Just the way you feel when they walk in the room, you go, fuck, that's the pound for pound right there. That's a bad motherfucker. And I feel like Islam has finally came into that. He's got 4 title defenses going for his 5th. If he gets this 5th title defense, will be the longest reigning lightweight champion of all time. He is getting himself into rarefied air and has gave us some absolute fucking wars along the way. One knock that Dagestani fighters get is they're just kind of hold and pray type of fighters. They're boring. Not this guy. Not this guy. I mean, you look back at his title reign, won the belt from Charles Oliveira. Again, a fun fight, submitted him in the 2nd round. Submitted. Let me repeat that. Submitted Charles Oliveira, who has the most submissions in UFC history, and then gave us a 5-round banger. Pound for pound 1 versus pound for pound 2. Alexander Volkanovski, the first fight. I mean, a very competitive fight. A lot of people thought that Volkanovski might have took that fight. I thought they got the decision right, but very competitive nonetheless. And then, of course, we got into the Volkanovski 2, short notice, knocked him out, head kick. Impressive. But then we saw Dustin Poirier and Islam Makhachev, and you get another war. You get a war where both guys are fighting tooth and nail to get it done, throws his leg. I mean, Islam, one thing that I've noticed just rewatching these fights, he's got some of the best trips I've ever fucking seen. Super impressive, but ends up choking out Dustin Poirier. Still a fantastic fight. And you just have seen the heart out of this guy. You've seen the ability to go into those deep waters and come out victorious, which I think is super impressive. And it's also a rematch against Arman Tsarukyan. Have seen each other before. Back in 2019, Arman Tsarukyan in his UFC debut on short notice. So you got to give the guy a little leeway there. He's walking into the UFC and has to face Islam, which most people did not want to. But regardless, should be a very fun fight. When I look back at the career of Arman Tsarukyan, you think about, again, just got done beating Charles Oliveira at UFC 300 in a pretty close fight. Again, a lot of people thought Charles won that fight because he had some deep submissions, definitely in the first round. The 2nd round was pure dominance by Arman. But previous to that, kneed the face off Beneil Dariush back in December of 2023 in Austin. I'm sad I missed that card, but I was working. Last loss being to Mateusz Gamrot, which is kind of telling a little bit. The last time he faced a true kind of wrestle first fighter, he lost. But rewatching it, it was a very close fight. And I honestly think live scoring, I probably had it 4-1, maybe 3-2 Arman. I thought he won that fight. But regardless, lost the decision and was super competitive. The real reason I wanted to watch this fight is because this is the only fight that Arman's had that went 5 rounds. Previous to me watching this fight, I watched his fight with Islam Makhachev, and you could see, again, it was his UFC debut. He was coming in on late notice, but you could see he kind of faded. And he brought this up. He brought this up in interviews coming up to this fight. He said, you know, that was his downfall. Is the gas tank just wasn't there in that 3rd round. Fighting Islam Makhachev, he lost some of that steam. The pace that was going on in this Mateusz Gamrot fight was insane. I have no doubts that Arman can fight for 5 rounds. The one knock that I saw is as the fight got longer, true with the Islam fight too, it became easier to get him down. You know, he started getting stuck on the bottom a little bit more, where those early rounds, they were very push and pull. You know, a takedown here, pop right back up, a takedown there, pop right back up. As the fight went long, those takedowns became easier, and eventually I think that led to his downfall in the judges' eyes in both the Mateusz Gamrot fight and that Islam fight. But regardless, I mean, skill for skill, you look at this guy. He does have the wrestling pedigree to stand up to a guy like Islam Makhachev. I do think Islam has the advantage on the feet, although it's not much. Yeah, it is a little bit. It's a good amount. But Arman's got some good kicks. He's got some really nice kicks that I think could give him some problem. I just feel like Islam is on another level. He's on another fucking level right now, which is what's making me lean in his direction. But I could be wrong. I definitely could be wrong, and I'm interested to hear Cody's take on this because, again, a collegiate wrestler. I don't know if I actually said it yet, but collegiate wrestler, and he should have a little bit better insights than maybe I would, just from the technical standpoint of where these guys want to be and how they get there. Arman has also looked to be in incredible shape. I mean, dude looks jacked. That's the other thing that I noted in my notes rewatching that first fight is Islam was just a little bit too strong for him. And you can see, I think intentionally, I don't think he's actually said it, but intentionally he has been putting on some muscle for this fight. He looks to be in absolutely incredible shape. So I'm very interested and excited for this fight. We'll talk to Cody and see what he feels a little bit later in the show. But we also have Merab Dvalishvili versus Umar Nurmagomedov. Again, kind of the same boat where we're looking at the top 5 and we're going, who the fuck can beat this guy? Who skill-wise can match up to Merab Dvalishvili and what he's been able to do? Because it is nothing short of impressive. I mean, you look at the guy's last 4 fights: Sean O'Malley, Henry Cejudo, Petr Yan, Jose Aldo, champion. Beat them all unanimous decision and did it in pretty convincing fashion. All 4 ways. Really, you can't understate what Merab Dvalishvili has been able to do. I mean, dude's on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 fight win streak and has looked unstoppable. If there's anything that you can point to that you go, oh, here's where he'll get caught, it's his chin. We've seen him get dropped a couple times, but you don't necessarily expect that from Umar, although he does have good striking. You don't think that, if Sean O'Malley couldn't knock him out, I don't necessarily know if Umar can. But again, it's a different style. Merab didn't have to worry about the takedown from Sean O'Malley the way that he does with Umar Nurmagomedov. And if we're just looking at the top of this division, you got, of course, Sean sitting at 1, Umar sitting at 2, Petr Yan, Corey Sandhagen, Davidson Figueiredo. We saw what happened with Petr Yan. I know that Petr had a very great fight with Davidson Figueiredo, but I'm not really begging for that fight again, just with how one-sided it was the first time. Corey Sandhagen coming off a loss to Umar Nurmagomedov. He needs to get back in the win column. Davidson Figueiredo coming off a loss to Petr Yan. He needs to get back in the win column. And then we're looking at Chito Vera, Henry Cejudo, Song Yadong, Rob Font. Like, where do you see, when's the loss come from Merab Dvalishvili? If he can get through Umar Nurmagomedov, he may be running this division for a long time. And you don't think he goes for double champ status because Ilia Topuria is sitting there, his Georgia companion. You don't see him going for that double champ. But this is like, if you want to stop Merab, now is the time. It comes down to Umar Nurmagomedov. Again, I always think Sean O'Malley's got a puncher's chance. Corey Sandhagen is one of the best in the world. But it feels like this is the one if there's going to be one. And, I find it hard to bet against him, which is why I find this line so fucking wild. Like a plus 300 favorite for Umar, who, given, I know he's 18-0, but he just hasn't had that high-level competition like Merab has. And that's no knock on Umar. It's just a fact. It just has to do with the fact that he is just breaking into the top of this division where Merab has been sitting there for a long time. I'll say the win against Corey Sandhagen was super impressive. I thought he was fucked. Maybe not fucked, but I thought that was going to be too big of a jump. He performed very well against Corey Sandhagen. And the one thing that I found ultra impressive in that fight was that 5th round, the shape that the shape that Umar was in. Because you always got to think about that when you're facing a guy with the pressure and the gas tank of Merab Dvalishvili is how are you going to hang for 5 rounds? Umar fought at a very high pace in that Corey Sandhagen fight. Most of it being on the feet, which is really impressive, especially when you consider Corey's, that's Corey's bread and butter. He wants to stand and bang. I know as of recent, you saw it with like the Chito Vera fight, the Rob Font fight, even the Song Yadong fight. He has kind of leaned a little bit more into the wrestling world, but he's a striker. At the end of the day, he's a striker, and Umar tit for tatted with him for 5 rounds and then eventually took over, got a big takedown, and cemented himself into the top of this division. Very impressive. Very impressive what Umar is going to do. But Merab's a different animal. He's not going to be able to wrestle, or I don't think he's going to be able to wrestle with the same confidence against Merab as he did with Corey Sandhagen. The fight that I rewatched that really kind of put me on notice, and I've watched it a couple times, but every time I watch it, it's this Henry Cejudo fight. You rewatch that fight with Henry Cejudo and what Merab was able to do. First round, I will say, he got taken down and put on his back for, a minute and a half, 2 minutes by Henry Cejudo, who's got that high-level wrestling pedigree. That's why I kind of circled this fight, and this is the one that I really needed to take a deep, hard look at to see how he'd hang. But rounds 2 and 3, the pressure starts to add up. Merab was able to defend the takedowns of Henry Cejudo, and then he lands some really hard and aggressive strikes coming out of clinch situations, which, we haven't seen Umar really get hit. He did get dropped once before against Beskat Almakhan, who was, his previous fight before Corey Sandhagen. Very brief. First round kind of flash knockdown, got caught on the top of the head and just, but recovered quickly. I just don't know. I don't know how he's going to... I don't know if Umar's wrestling pedigree is high enough to hold Merab down, which is why I think it's going to end up being this kind of frantic standing battle, which I do think Umar is the better striker. But I think over the course of 5 rounds, Merab might be able to, like he did with Henry Cejudo, just keep that pressure on him, use his own takedowns, chain wrestle. Even if he doesn't hold it, it just wears the fuck out of you. It wears the fuck out of you to the point where you're just like dead. You're standing there, heavy arms, heavy legs, and you can't do shit about it. It's super impressive what he's been able to do. I think the line is lopsided. If I were a betting man, my money's on Merab here. Although I am kind of rooting for Team Habib and the whole spectacle of, Umar and Islam getting titles, not titles because Islam already has it, but holding belts same time, same night. That would be special. That is a fantastic story, a beautiful story. But you're facing a bad motherfucker out of Georgia who does not stop. So gonna be incredible. Post that, we just get into some fun fights, and we'll dig into those top 2 a little bit later with Cody and kind of get his kind of real take on these things. But post that, you just get in some fun fights. Yuri Procházka, Jamahal Hill, both these guys fell to Alex Pereira. But I think this is a fantastic matchup. One thing that I know for a fact is Yuri's got heart for days. The other thing I know is Jamahal Hill's got power for days. Somebody's getting knocked out. Somebody's going to sleep before this fight ends. If it goes 3 rounds, I would be super surprised. Just with the way these guys fight, I think it's going to be a very fun matchup, and it's basically a coin flip on the odds. Jamahal Hill does hold the 125 to 105. Jamahal Hill holds the favor there, but I could see it going either way. I do favor Jamahal Hill in this fight. Beneil Dariush, Renato Moicano. This is another one that has some kind of big stakes in the lightweight division. Again, when we're talking about that lightweight division, we talked about the top 5 that's sitting there. Justin Gaethje and Dan Hooker are, I don't know if that's reported or official, but those 2 are lined up for a matchup. You kind of assume Charles is waiting it out for his next shot at the belt. but he could find a fight in between. Dustin Poirier still waiting for a fight. Max Holloway is sitting there. That'd be a fantastic matchup. Michael Chandler just taking the loss to Dustin Poirier. But then you have Beneil Dariush and Renato Moicano sitting at 9-10. And Renato's on a hell of a run. Just got done beating the brakes off of not Beneil Dariush because he's fighting this weekend. Benoit Saint-Denis. Also, previous to that, knocking out Jalen Turner in the second round at UFC 300. Went to a decision with Drew Dober, beat Brad Riddell, beat Dos Anjos. I think Renato Moicano is kind of coming into his own. The way that he took on and beat up Benoit Saint-Denis, who I know a little bit of the sparkle has came off of him since that loss to Dustin Poirier. But Dustin Poirier, I'm not saying he was getting dominated, but it was a very competitive. He definitely lost the first round and then ended up catching him. I know he jumped a fuck ton of gillies and did a bunch of weird shit, but Benoit was holding his own. In this Renato Moicano fight, Benoit was getting dominated start to finish until eventually the doctors had to stop it because his face was so beat up. So super impressive out of Renato. I think his rise will be very interesting for this top of the division and would be fantastic fights with any of the guys in the top 5. If he can get through Beneil Dariush, who is on a little bit of a skid, I kind of expect him to walk his way through this one. I mean, last 2 fights, he got pretty brutally knocked out by Arman, first round, big knee, and then Charles, again, in Canada, knocked the fuck out first round. So you want to see if Beneil can get back into the winning column, but I think Renato might just be a little bit too much for the boy. And then Kevin Holland, Reinier de Ridder. Reinier de Ridder coming into the UFC. It's going to be his second fight. First one was against Gerald Meerschaert, which this is a former one champion. I'll be honest, I wasn't super overly impressed with his UFC debut. He definitely has really impressive grappling skills, but on the feet, he's kind of a mess. I think Kevin Holland can take advantage of that. And Kevin Holland's no slouch on the ground, but you think that if Reinier gets there, he's so good that may be his ticket to the win column. But Kevin Holland, I don't see this being an ultra competitive fight on the feet. If it stays there, I think Rainier's in a lot of trouble. Kevin Holland, that being said, has taken a lot of losses as of late. Lost to Roman Dolidze. Did get a submission win over a kind of a nasty submission win against Mikel Alzogalakuk. If you remember, he got dropped and then found an armbar, I believe, and then ended up breaking his arm. Lost to Michael Venom Page. That was a weird one. And then lost to Jack Della Maddalena. So looking for Kevin Holland to get back on track. I think this is a good matchup for him. If he can keep it standing, I think Rainier's in a lot of trouble. We also have Peyton Talbot, Heine Barcelos. The only, Peyton Talbot's a minus 1,500 favorite. You expect him to win. I think he's going to win. I will say if there's a weak spot in Peyton's game, if this stays standing, I think Heine's fucked. But if there's a weak spot in Peyton Talbot's game, it is going to be the wrestling. When he faced off in his UFC debut against Nick Aguirre, he lost a lot of control time. Ended up getting the submission, which was impressive. But in the first handful of rounds, there was a definite discrepancy in the grappling. Heine Barcelos, 5-time national wrestling champion in Brazil. He isn't, he definitely does. He can lean on his wrestling, but is a more than willing striker. Can be a little bit chinny. So we'll see how that plays out. But I think that's going to be another big win in the column of Peyton Talbot. But that's just kind of initial takes. It's a fantastic fight card. We're going to dig in a little bit deeper. we're gonna travel through space and time real quick, link up with the man, the myth, the legend, Cody Hooper, and give this kind of a deeper breakdown. But excited for this fight card. Should be very fun. And yeah, stay tuned. I am here with Cody Hooper, the freaking man, the myth, the legend. I went to high school with this man, a world class bettor. That's what people say. One of the number one bettors in the nation. DraftKings, what are you up? 200, 300K?
Yeah, something like that. Absolutely
No,
not.
I'm
But
fucking with you. But like I said earlier, I live in Texas, so I don't have access to betting websites like DraftKings, like FanDuel, not allowed here. So I brought in a good buddy of mine, also a collegiate wrestler. Especially with this card, that's something we need because there is some masterclass wrestlers like Islam Makhachev, like Arman Tsarukyan, like Umar, like Merab, that a lot of people are probably looking at these and thinking, I don't know what the fuck to think. So that's why we got Cody here today. He's going to help us with some betting lines and pick out some good ones, hopefully find you some money. Because I do think looking through this card, there is money to be made. Although I do not bet, when I see, and I'll just shoot one off the rip, Umar Nurmagomedov minus 300, my eyes kind of light up. I think we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but Cody, welcome to the show today in combat. My first guest, brother. How you feeling?
dude, first off, thanks for having me here. I'm absolutely fired up to be here and couldn't be more excited about this card. I mean, between the wrestling and the striking here, this is definitely going to be one to remember. Great way to kick off the
Yeah,
year.
that's and when I was, I did a little bit of a pre-show to this, but I was just talking about how, when you look at these divisions, the matchups here with like an Arman Tsarukyan, if you're just looking at the top five, like this seems like the only kind of problem matchup for a guy like Islam Makhachev because the other guys are Charles Oliveira, who he's already beat, Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, who he's already beat, and then Max Holloway. That's your top five. And I'm not saying those guys aren't skilled enough,
Right.
but when you're just looking skill for skill, he's either already beat him or there's a clear path to victory when it comes to the wrestling. But when you look at a guy like Arman Tsarukyan, who he has fought before, to be fair, and did beat, you think that there's at least a chance where he's not completely outmatching him in one level of the fight. Um, and same thing with Merab and Umar. So when you're looking at this first fight with a guy like Islam Makhachev, first of all, how impressed with him have you been? He's on, his fourth, heading into his fifth title defense. How impressed have you been with a guy like Islam Makhachev?
I mean, Islam Makhachev, words are hard. Islam is just about as good as it gets. I mean, his wrestling ability combined with his ground and pound and his advanced striking, or
Yeah.
as his striking progresses, I mean, it really doesn't get much more impressive than Islam.
And then when you look at Armin, do you see the same thing I see, where there's at least some equalization of skills there, or you think it's still a mismatch?
Equalization might be a little bit of a stretch because Islam
Yeah.
is just so freaking good. But I mean, one thing I've written down for Islam is what he does to equalize skills is because he's crazier than anybody's ex-girlfriend. I mean, this man just absolutely gets after it. And
Yeah.
so with that and a little bit extra, I think it definitely does bring it close to equal.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like a knock on Dagestani fighters. A lot of times you're like, oh, they're these boring kind of grab you hold on to. Islam is a fucking wild boy. Like this is a guy that stood a majority of the fight with Dustin Poirier. He, had a very competitive fight with a guy like Alexander Volkanovski, and he does lean back on that wrestling if he feels like he's in danger. Like,
Mhm.
the fourth round with Volk in their first fight, he pretty much just grabbed his back. And that is always a tool for the guy. But he'll stand and bang, and he's not scared to get into the pocket and really kind of play around. So when we're looking at the betting line, minus 390 for Islam Makhachev, plus 290. What do you like here? Do you like the plus money on Arman, or are you looking somewhere else to find some money on this fight?
Yeah, so right now the under for 4.5 rounds is plus 250. I love,
Mm,
some plus money, and both of those guys definitely have their fair share of skill in jujitsu and love to beat the other person's face into the canvas. So if I can find money for under 5 rounds, I'm
yeah.
taking it every time.
Yeah. Do you like it for the plus money, or do you actually think we're going to see a finish in this fight?
I think we probably see a finish. I mean, so here's the thing: is if Arman's gonna win this fight, I don't see him winning it by decision. I see him
Yeah,
kind of
I agree.
getting on top, or whether and doing this ground and pound thing, or catching him on his feet. Islam can be hurt. We've seen it in multiple fights now, between Volk and Dustin Poirier. So if Arman's going to win that fight, that's how I see it going. And Arman is so absolutely out of his mind when he fights people that he puts himself in a lot of precarious situations. If
Yeah.
you're going to do that a lot against Islam, you're going to get choked out.
Yeah, the fight that I really, when I was looking back at Arman, trying to see what's the path to victory for the guy, I looked back at the Mateusz Gamrot fight, which he did lose, but that
Mhm.
was kind of the last time he was in a battle with, somebody with a certain sort of wrestling pedigree. And to be fair to Arman, rewatching it, I thought that he won that fight, although it was very close. I had it probably 4-1 or maybe 3-2 for Arman. But the things that I really took away from it is nasty side kicks. He throws a beautiful side kick that if he can just keep digging that into the body of Islam, I think both these guys I feel have the longer it goes, the more reckless it gets, where things are going to open up a lot more. So in the early rounds, and it was true with their first fight too, it was a lot of it was a lot of push and pull in the wrestling where, nobody really had the advantage. It was just good scrambles. They'd find their way back to the feet and then end up striking again. I think the one knock that I saw in Tsarukyan is as the fight went longer, I felt like for Mateusz and for Islam, the takedowns became easier. But in those early rounds when he can kind of nullify those still, and
Mhm.
he does also look to be in incredible shape. I don't know if you've seen any of the pictures of the boy,
Yeah.
but the man is fucking shredded.
Just chiseled out
Uh,
of stone.
yeah, dude's absolutely shredded. I think if he can nullify some of that wrestling and then land some of those big body kicks and try to find something on the feet and, get his hands on Islam, I think there's a good chance. But there's just something about Islam right now. I just feel like he's got an air to him. His confidence is high, just walking around talking. He feels like a pound for pound champ. Just the way that he's holding himself. I haven't really felt it with him before until kind of this come up to the fight where I'm like, fuck. He just has that next level air to him where I just feel like he's so ultra confident.
Two big keys for me in this fight for Islam. One, even the Dagestani fighters are talking about how absolutely psycho Khabib has been in camp. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
when you got somebody like Islam go to DC like, "Oh, help us, brother. Come, hey, come control him." And DC's like, I ain't doing that.
Yeah. He's mad.
To the baby bump. The kid just had a son.
Oh, there it
So the
is.
baby bump is always huge, especially in
Always a
things like
factor.
UFC.
Always a fact in everything. It's like you have a baby and you got an NFL game the next week, you're scoring a touchdown. That's
A
just the
hundred
thing
times that
about it.
point.
There's always a baby bump. I didn't know that. A great point, a fantastic point. So we like the plus money at under 4.5. Anything else you like on this fight?
Um, I mean, if you
You can
really
say
want,
no.
yeah, if I'm not gonna put any money on anything else, but if you really want some fast money and not very much, I would put some money on Islam. He's minus
Yeah,
a million right now, but
yeah, yeah. Cool. Next fight. This is the one that I think for me is super lopsided, just with the uh just first of all, if you're just looking at the opponents of each man here, Merab Dvalishvili, the last 4 fights, he's fought champions. He's fought Jose Aldo, he's fought Sean O'Malley, he's fought Piotr Jan, and I'm missing one. What's his name?
oh, Henry Cejudo.
Piotr. Yes, yes, Henry Cejudo. Um, Compared to Umar, who, to be fair to him, it just is the fact that he hasn't been in the UFC as long and he's just kind of working his way into the upper echelon of this division. But with the way that Marab's performed in his last, he's on a 12 fight win streak or 11 fight win streak right
Something
now,
insane.
and it hasn't really been close on any fight. He's lost some rounds here and there. He's got touched up a little bit. The
Mhm.
chin is all, it seems like it's testable for Merab. but he's dominated every fight. To see him as such a big underdog, does that make you want to jump on that at all, or we think he's in trouble?
I love the plus money here. For whatever reason, Merab
Marab.
Dvalishvili is words are hard. Is one of the currently the most disrespected champions, and it's because
It's ridiculous.
he beat everybody's favorite fighter in Shug,
Yeah.
and Shug's out here saying I won, and as much as everybody loves Shug, there's just no way in
Yeah.
absolute
And I
hell
love
he won
Shook
that fight.
too. But if you just look at his body language, you can look back at the fight in the pick and pull and be like, yeah, I maybe touched him here. You can really do it. But if you look at his body language leaving that fight, he knew he lost in the octagon.
Mhm.
But classic Suge material. He's going to deny and defend until the day he dies. And that's, part of the reason people love him. But
Mhm.
um, to have him as I've got him at plus 240 just looking at the screen right now. Ridiculous in my mind, especially when Umar, and he did have a very good fight with Corey Sandhagen, and where a lot of people thought he would be outclassed. A
Mhm.
fight that he fought majority on the feet just because he never really got his foothold into the wrestling until later in the fifth round where he finally got him down. Uh, super impressive. But the level that Merab has fought at for the opponents he's fought with, it's insane.
Mhm.
And the fight that I kind of had circled here was the Henry Cejudo fight. I mean, you look at it, he fought a world class wrestler, uh, Olympic gold medalist,
At the
and
time, the youngest U.S. Wrestling Olympic gold medalist in the history
yeah,
of the U.S.
and kind of punked him out. I mean, Henry had a good first round, got him down, was able to hold him there, but I just don't think that Umar has the same strength that Henry does. And I think Marab, just with how frantic and how crazy that motherfucker is, he's going to be hard to hold. Um, and I think he's going to be able to land his own. Just he's not a traditional wrestler in the sense where he wants to take you down and hold you there. A lot of
Mhm.
times he'll just chain wrestle you, he'll let you up, and then he'll do it again. It's more of a pressure wrestling technique than it is traditional, you know, American style or Dagestani style wrestling, which I think over the course of 5 rounds, will start to pay dividends. And I think he's being severely underestimated, at least on the odds.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Right now, he's plus 300 on DraftKings, which is what I used to gamble.
Yeah.
And it's which is absolutely unheard of. I don't see one aspect besides maybe traditional wrestling in which Umar is going to surpass Merab.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to ground and pound, jujitsu, standing and striking versatility, I mean, I just don't see unless Umar just takes him down and holds him down for 3
So fucking
rounds.
hard.
Yeah,
Who's done that? Nobody.
nobody.
Nobody's done it.
The dude's like a squirrel chasing a nut, man. He's just everywhere
Yeah.
all at once, man.
Yeah. I'm 100% with you there. I think the plus money should be hammered. I really think that's a crazy line. Um, Umar shocked me before. I thought he was going to lose to Corey Sandhagen, so I'm not saying it's impossible for the boy, but just with the level that Marab's been fighting at and how good he's looked, do you think any part of the fluster of him not wanting to fight Umar, kind of their back and forth? Do you think that plays any part into this at all with Merab
Um,
just being kind of out of his mind?
I do, and Merab will tell everybody that it doesn't actually really affect him, that this and that. And Merab is one of the most emotional fighters in the UFC, and
Yeah.
he'll lie like a rug and say he's not, but he is.
I mean,
And
he's fought every time he's at a UFC event, he ends up fighting the crowd. Somehow he's in the crowd fighting somebody. So, words definitely get to the boy.
100%. Like I said, the only way I see Umar even really putting up a fight here is just wrestling and holding him down. And the only reason I give him a slight edge is just because what Khabib's done in his short history as a coach. I mean, the dude
Yeah.
is like a billion in a couple. Like the dude's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, and it's hard to, and it's such a good story too. Him fighting with Islam. Part of me kind of wants that to happen just because the story's so good. Khabib's there, Islam's there, Umar's there. They all get a title. Hoo hum, hallelujah.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm with you. Like when I was rewatching the Henry Cejudo fight, one of my notes was just, "Holy fuck, he's so good."
I
You
have
know?
holy fuck written down in my notes as well. Like holy fuck, what he did to Sean O'Malley was something completely else.
Yeah, yeah. He's a different animal. I think he's being severely underestimated. Anything else you like on this fight? Do you think it's a finish? Do you think it goes all five?
I see this one going all five, which is
And that
plus
tends to be
one
how it
twenty.
happens. Merab is kind of known for decisions. He's not a super hard finisher. He's more of just a wear you down by the end of it. Your legs and arms are so heavy that he's just taking advantage of you. To Umar's credit, I think a couple things that I noticed rewatching some of his fights is, first of all, he did fight 5 rounds with Corey Sandhagen and looked fantastic in the fifth round. They had a pretty high pace during that fight too. Not a Merab pace, but still a pretty high pace fight. He's also really good at getting around to the back. Even on failed shots, he's good at getting around to that back. Whether he can do that to Merab and hold him, another question, but he's good at, even in failed takedowns, somehow securing and scrambling. So, um, some just some points for him, but I don't think he's fucked, but I think he's fucked.
I couldn't agree more. I love the over. I love Merab. I like the story with Khabib and his dad, and Umar and Islam, and
Yeah.
it's all great. And I tell you what, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah.
Merab's another one of those fucking insane guys who can make some mistakes, and maybe if this and that happens potentially. But I mean, yeah, Umar's got to
Is there a
fight one
world
fight.
where he gets knocked out?
Uh, that is a good point, actually. The chin in
Yeah.
the Dagestani camp, Khabib included, Khabib got pieced up by McGregor. The chin in that camp has always been something that was like, it's a little, it's a little nick in the armor. It's
Yeah.
maybe that would be crazy.
I was talking about Marab, but
Oh,
true for Umar too.
I don't see Merab getting knocked out.
Cool. Yeah. And that being said, I mean, just assuming the only other reason I kind of want Umar to somehow figure it out is because what's left for Marab when you're looking at this division? I mean, he's beaten Sean O'Malley. Number two Umar right now. If he gets through him, that's another one. Beating Piotr Jan. Corey Sandhagen's coming off a loss. Davidson Figueiredo's coming off a loss. And then you're looking at Cheeto Vera. You don't need him back up there. Henry Cejudo, he's already beaten. And then we get into like now you're fighting Song Yadong, Rob Font, Mario Batista, Jose Aldo. Jose's already beat. The other guys have fights coming up. Like, what do you do with the guy? You can't
Uh,
assume he's going to move up with Ilya sitting there and they're both being Georgian fighters. I don't think he would do that. Shit, he wouldn't even fight Aljo. So, what do you do with the guy?
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard a lot of chatter about Ilya just going ahead and going up to 155.
Yeah, he says that, but there's still good fights for him at 145. You got I'm gonna speed round you on one later, but we had Diego Lopez and Yair Rodriguez get an I don't know if it was announced or just touched, but fantastic fight. You haven't seen that yet?
I mean, I've heard like chatter and like but
I don't know if it's official,
for me,
but
it's like until Dana says it and I can like put my hands on it. Like John
yeah,
Jones has scarred me too many times.
yes, 100%. It just there doesn't feel like there's much like if Umar doesn't take him out, Merab feels like he could run this division forever. Maybe you give him the Sean O'Malley rematch, uh, and that I'm fine with that. Does the outcome change outside of a knockout? I doubt it. Uh, but fuck, he is good.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Okay, now we get into the fun stuff. Yuri Procházka, Jamahal Hill. I love this fight. They were supposed to fight, I don't know, 20 moons ago. Yuri broke his I mean these two became champions in the midst of light heavyweight hell.
Mhm.
Like Glover won the belt. Yuri took it from him in a last second choke. Then Yuri breaks his arm or breaks his shoulder. Jamal, actually, it wasn't that. Yuri breaks his shoulder. Then we go into a vacant belt with um, Magomed and Jan Blachowicz. They end up fighting into a draw. Then Jamal Hill takes the vacant belt from Glover Teixeira in Brazil. Then he tears his Achilles, vacates his belt. Then we get Alex Pereira. All is good in the world.
Hmm.
But these guys were supposed to fight back then. This was the matchup that was supposed to be made. We're finally getting it. And you're looking at just two psychos. Two psychos. Jiří Procházka is a certified fucking madman, and Jamal Hill has KO power for fucking days. I like when I'm looking at this fight, I think there's from a technical standpoint, it's hard to say Yuri's technical. He's so unorthodox. I don't even know what technical means when it comes to a guy like Jiří Procházka because he's so unorthodox. You assume Jamal Hill is a more technical fighter, and he did look fantastic against Glover Teixeira when he did win that belt. I mean, absolutely dominated Glover, an aging Glover to be fair, but nonetheless pieced him up on the feet, showed a little bit of extra level with his wrestling in that fight. I was really excited about Jamal Hill at that time. Obviously, since coming back, he's only had one fight, and it was to Alex Pereira where he got knocked out. So he is coming off of that. But Jiří, in the same sense, is they're in the same boat right now, where they've had shots at the title. They've both been KO'd by the King. Now we just get to see fireworks between these two guys. How do you feel about it?
So listening to a little bit of Jiří talk about it, first and foremost, I think Jiří's in probably the weirdest place in the entire world right now. Homie's in a Scottish Mexican fusion restaurant. I mean, it's just like this dude might be a pound for pound guy, and he's just very clearly the second or third best
You're
guy.
that high on Jiří?
I absolutely
Pound
love
for
Jiří
pound too?
Procházka.
I mean,
He's
I
not
love him too,
top
but
10, pound for pound for sure. If it's not for Alex Pereira, I think he's definitely the champion. I'm extremely high on Jiří Procházka in this fight, and I am incredibly low on Jamal Hill.
I'm on the other side of you, brother. I'm on the other
Hey.
side of you. And it is a coin flip fight. I mean, if you're looking at the odds, a coin flip fight. Um, but no, continue on Jiří. Tell me more about the boy.
Yeah. First and foremost, I just think he's finally going to learn to put his hands up. He said he
No,
said he
come
learned how to
on.
do
What
it.
are you talking
He
about?
said he learned how to do it in his interview. The man seems like an honest guy. I'm going to take him at his word. Uh,
That guy, he is going to walk forward hands down, no fucks given.
Another thing is Jamal Hill does have power. He does not have Alex Pereira power. Nobody in the UFC has Alex Pereira power. I think Jiří
True.
Procházka is a much more gifted and skilled fighter. I mean, mixing up his strikes is going to be something that I think is going to confuse Jamal. I think Jamal fought the absolute fight of his entire life against a 97-year-old Glover Teixeira who was
Yeah.
on a resurgence. And I just don't see outside of a knockout how Jamal Hill gets this fight done.
But that's what I see as a knockout. I don't think this one's going 3 rounds. I think somebody's getting knocked the fuck out. And it really could be either way in my mind. I I think the Glover Teixeira fight sold me a little bit more than it did you on Jamal's skills. I do think he has more than enough power to knock Jiří out, and I think Jiří gives him the openings to take advantage of that. But in the same sense, like, do you see Jiří in his normal state just walking Jamal down this entire fight?
I do think so. I think we're going to see a much more kind of passive Jamal Hill coming off, this is going to be his first real actual fight that's actually going to potentially go longer than 38 seconds or whatever the hell it was. With Alex
Yeah,
Pereira, I think he's going to be significantly less athletic. I mean, if we look at the NFL, people that tear their Achilles, shout out Aaron
yeah.
Rodgers, aren't up to snuff anymore.
He
I
is also
just,
coming off another injury, isn't he?
yeah, a shoulder or a pec.
I forgot in between the Alex Pereira fight and now. I think, yeah, he did do something else, didn't he?
So I just think we kind of see a little bit different of a Jamal Hill. I don't. I know Jiří said this is the best shape that he's ever been in his entire life, and if I had a
But that's
dollar
just
for how
Yuri
many,
Procházka.
and
Yeah,
also if I had a
every
dollar for
time.
however many times somebody said that in the UFC, we'd both be rich men, and we'd be doing this podcast on an island. So
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it should be a very fun fight. Yeah. Are you just Yuri by knockout, or how do you see it? How do you bet it?
Jiří is plus 110 on the odds. I like that. I 1.5 rounds is the line. If
Mm.
you can get Jiří by KO TKO, I think that's plus 220 or maybe 190 right now. So I like that. It sounds like free money to me. And every time I feel like it's free money, I'm wrong. So we'll have to see how
Yeah,
it ends up.
that's such a fun fight. I mean,
Hmm.
I think we both agree somebody's getting knocked out. That's probably not going to a decision. If it does, it's just going to be a certified war throughout. So should be a really, really good one. Beneil Dariush, Renato Moicano. This is a little bit of an odd one. Not really an odd one. I think they're 9 and 10 in the rankings, but we're looking at Beneil Dariush, who's coming off of two first round, being on the wrong side of two first round KOs.
Mhm.
Granted, it's to Arman Tsarukyan and Charles Oliveira, so it's the top echelon of the division. But you have a surging Renato Moicano who knocked out Jalen Turner and then came back and put a masterclass onto Benoit Saint Denis. Do you think from my view over here, I think Benil's in trouble. We just haven't seen anything out of him as of recent that tells me otherwise. Do you think he has a path to victory against Renato Moicano, or are you kind of on the same page?
I mean, he definitely has a puncher's chance. Beneil Dariush hits fucking hard.
That he
And
does.
Moicano definitely can be knocked out. What it really comes down to is I just think, if we get this fight a year ago, I'm more excited about it. I'm still excited about this fight because somebody's going the fuck to sleep.
Yeah.
But if we get this fight like a year ago, and I'm just more excited about it. I think like you nailed it. Moicano is on a 4-fight win streak, and Beneil Dariush kind of looks like Beneil Dariush did before he had this random resurgence.
Yeah.
Looks slow. He almost looks disinterested sometimes when he's fighting, and
Yeah.
unless
It's something on
he
his face. He always kind of looks like that.
yeah, I'm like, do you want to be here? Like, I don't. You signed up to do this, so you clearly want to be doing it. But I don't know. I can never tell if he
Yeah.
wants to be where he is.
Yeah. When you're betting this, what do you see that you like on here?
I
I
love
have Benil plus 145, Hanato minus 175.
I love minus 175. And I love the under. I do believe it is 2 rounds. Last time I checked, it could be down to a round and a half. They ain't going to the fucking third round. They ain't doing it. It's not happening. Um,
Boxing, or you think Hanato takes him down and just kind of does what he wants?
I think that would be probably his safest way of victory, but also they both hit hard. So
Yeah.
personally, I think it's probably, something like a punch that rattles him a little bit, takes him down, and, chokes him, armbar.
Finishes from there.
I mean, Brazilian black belt in jiu-jitsu, and he's Brazilian, so it's like a real one. He's not like a
Yeah, yeah,
random,
yeah, yeah.
oh my God. And I'm like, homie doesn't even know how to do an armbar.
I'm
So,
pretty sure Alex Pereira has a black belt. He is
oh,
also Brazilian, but
yeah, very,
sometimes there's
very,
just some funky black belts out there.
very, very
Um,
real. Yes.
Kevin Holland, Reinier de Ridder. Rainier's a former one champion,
Mhm.
had his first fight in the UFC not too long ago. I don't know when exactly it was, but against Gerald Meerschaert.
Mhm.
Not the best debut. He did end up getting a submission victory, but gas tank was a little bit suspect. His feet, his striking is definitely suspect. Uh, Kevin Holland has kind of had his ups and downs in the UFC, but he has fought a lot of the kind of upper echelon of divisions, kind of in that kind of 5 to 10 range, or guys that have since walked up the rankings. How do you see this one going?
Um, yeah, Kevin
Basically a coin
Holland.
flip fight
Yeah, Kevin Holland,
as far as odds.
one of the gatekeepers of gatekeeping. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, never really been like Kevin Holland title shot, and I've never wanted Kevin Holland out of the rankings.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think this is going to be interesting. I think this is the perfect fight for Kevin Holland where he's at. Gets knocked out for the first time in his entire career, his last fight. And this, yeah. First off, we get it. You're Dutch, like your name's Reinier Rendier. Like we understand that you're
Yeah.
Dutch. We got it. Um, he's like you said, he's a dangerous submission threat. I always knew
He
Kevin
looked like
Holland.
shit on the feet.
Yeah, it's not good. Submitting Gerald Marchand's nothing to shake a stick at though. Gerald Marchand,
No.
yeah. But I mean, Kevin Holland, his kung fu style, he's gonna be talking shit the whole time. I'm not sure if this dude can speak any English or not, and we'll be able to understand it. But Kevin Holland's gonna be fucking chewing his ear off, just talking all the shit in the world. I see this one going the distance. I see this one being a decision for Kevin
I'm with
Holland.
that.
I love the over. The over set at 1.5 rounds. I don't see this one ending before round three.
Yep. Love it. Last one here. We'll hit a little Peyton Talbot. The line's fucking ridiculous. You know, I have minus 1300. So Vegas says it's not going to be close. Do you feel that? Are you high on Peyton Talbot? Do you see what Vegas sees, or you still kind of suspect on the kid? He's coming
Uh,
off of a couple knockouts. In his UFC debut, ended up getting a submission, but was a little suspect on the ground. I think if there's anywhere that he can be taken advantage of, it's there, but I'm not sure it's here.
yeah, Peyton Talbot. I mean, the kid's like a freight train that can kick you in the face.
Yeah.
I'm incredibly high on the kid. I think he's probably the second best prospect we've had coming up in the UFC in quite some
Hey, he's
time.
fun.
Yeah, behind Bo Nickel, of course. Bo Nickel. I mean,
Shout out to
obviously.
Bo Nickel.
Shout out Bo Nickel. The kid's fought on UFC affiliated fights 4 times, and he spent less than 7 minutes in the octagon.
Yeah.
And his first fight went the distance. So like,
Submission.
or no, submission. Sorry, I was talking about
Third
his.
round submission.
Talking about his
Contender series fight.
contender series fight. Yeah. But I mean, yeah. So I see Talbot. It's really hard to make money on this fight unless you like the under
Yeah.
1.5, which I'm not entirely sold on because Barcelos, I think is how you say his name. I watched a little bit of his tape. I mean, he's a journeyman, you know, he's 18-5. He's gonna have to wrestle his absolute balls off if he wants to beat Peyton Talbot.
I did
But
see he's a 5-time Brazilian wrestling champ. He doesn't always use it in his fights, but something to think about. If you're not high on Peyton Talbot and you think he can get out wrestled, I think there is some money to be made there. You are shooting for stars, but
Brazil's
something I saw.
absolutely booty butt cheeks at wrestling, so I'm pretty sure Augusta Bear from the U.S. could be a 10-time Brazilian champion. But good for the guy. I mean, he's made money fighting people, and he gets to
Yep.
fight on the featured
Yeah.
prelim.
It
I don't
feels
see
like
this
he's
one.
getting fed. It feels like he's getting fed to the wolves here a little bit.
Yeah,
And that is what it is. All right, we have 4 minutes and 26 seconds left on the clock. I didn't realize there was a clock, but I did not pay for Zoom Premium, so we are on the clock. I'm going to bang through some. We're just going to play through some fight announcements. Are they? Some of them are official. I think some of them are still yet to be announced. But I just want to get initial thoughts from you. Just quick hits. Just say who you like, if this is going to be a good fight, and we'll leave it there. First of all, Seattle. Seattle's coming together. We got Cejudo versus Song Yadong.
give me Song Yadong on a resurgence. Henry Cejudo's 78 years old.
Love it. Font versus Cruz. Rob Font versus Dominic Cruz.
Give me Bob Font, one of the best boxers in the UFC.
These two fights, when they got announced, I was like, I don't even know why these two guys are still fighting, to be honest with you. Dominic Cruz is coming off of a head kick loss to Cheeto Vera. I feel like he's kind of just trying to end on a win, but I'm not sure Rob Font's the motherfucker for it. I mean, he just had a really good performance against Kyler Phillips. And then Song Yadong hits as hard as a fucking, I'm pretty high on Song Yadong. He's lost to the likes of Corey Sandhagen and Piotr Jan, but those are the top of that bantamweight division is hard to beat. How about Leon Edwards versus Jack Della Maddalena? This is going down in London.
Love this fight. Give me Jack Della Give me JDM. Words are impossible today. I think Leon's time in the sun is over.
I mentioned it earlier, Lopez versus Rodriguez. Diego Lopez, Yair Rodriguez. Do you have a favorite here?
Give me Diego Lopez. He's an absolute fucking psychopath. I think that one's gonna be one for the fucking history books, though.
It just feels like I think that's going to be a really fun fight. It feels like Diego's kind of destined for a title shot. Yair is, I think last time out, had a good start, but then ended up getting knocked out against Brian Ortega. I could be wrong about that if he's fought in between, but the one thing I love about Yair is he's a wild boy, just as much as Diego Lopez. I think that's got fight of the night written all over it. Speaking of fight of the night, Justin Gaethje versus Dan freaking Hooker. How good is this fight?
I didn't know if you've seen this one because I just saw it earlier today. Your favorite fighter's favorite fighter's favorite fighter's favorite fighter.
There's no winner or loser here.
No, we win. Whoever loses that fight still wins. They're gonna get $50,000. Give me Gaethje on a bounce back as long as he doesn't break his nose in the first 38 seconds.
Yeah, that's a good one. Here's another one that kind of feel like hasn't got much light. Gilbert Burns versus Michael Morales. You see that? Are you familiar with Michael Morales?
Yeah, Michael Morales, the Colombian kid, right?
I believe he's Colombian or Brazilian or something like that. Just got done throwing a flying knee into Neil Magny's face.
Yes, thank God. Neil Magny needs more than Neil's knees to the face.
Well, I don't know if you need to say that because he also just got absolutely cold cocked by Carlos Prates. So I think he's taking his fair share of getting knocked the fuck out.
I did forget about that. Give me Morales. That kid might be the future. I forgot about him when I was talking about prospects. He might be the second best prospect we've got.
Yeah, Gilbert Burns is in a position now where he's just kind of holding down his spot, a tough out for anybody, but he's in a position now where he's got to take on these young contenders, especially at 170. I think this is the division to watch this year. I mean, you're looking at guys like, obviously we assume we're getting Shavkat and tell me his name.
Bilal Muhammad.
Jesus, that is like the meme, but I really couldn't get it out. Bilal Muhammad. God damn it. I apologize. Well, I know
the kid that went to U of I. He went to the University.
Did he go to U of I?
Yes, he did.
All right, Cody, we're going to get cut off here. We got less than a minute. I don't know how close we are. Thank you for stopping by. A fucking pleasure. We'll have to do it again. And thank you for your insights. Hopefully you guys can make some money this weekend. But appreciate you, brother.
Hey, anytime, anywhere, you let me know.
Peace.
Peace.
First guest, huh? That was, come on, brother. We're doing the damn thing. Really good insights there from Cody. I think we're pretty much in lockstep for most of the card, minus the Jiří Procházka and Jamahal Hill. Again, that's a coin flip on the odds. I think it's a coin flip in real life. But a fantastic fight card we have this weekend. That was Today in Combat. I appreciate you guys for stopping in and stopping by. Let me know how you thought about, not the interview, but introducing a little guest, and we'll be back next week with some more action. Who's fighting next week? Let's look at that before we go. Who is fighting next week? I haven't even looked. And is there even a fight card next week? I don't know. Next one is February 1st, so I think we do have a week in between, and that's Israel Adesanya versus Nasruddin Imavov. We're going to be back next week regardless. We'll talk about the fallout of 311 and what's next for the winners and losers. Appreciate you guys. Peace, love, happiness. See ya.